So we've got,
Good afternoon. Welcome back. Kent Bain with Nine Business Group, and we got Gary Pike joining us. Been about 18 months in the making, Gary, since we first connected. Lots happening, lots going on. But before we get to that, most importantly, introduce yourself and what your current project is, what your company is, and how you're quote unquote saving the world.
my name's Gary Pike, educated at University of Alberta, have a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture, been in ag all my life, and have started a new company called Sanico Technologies. And Sanico Technologies is in the business of manufacturing a fungicide, and it's actually more than just a fungicide. We're manufacturing hypochlorous acid and sodium hydroxide in large volumes for agricultural purposes and washing, cleaning all of those wonderful berries and plants that you like to consume. So we started
That's
out.
a lot of big space. So let's see if we can chunk this down to some bite-sized pieces, and let's work hard to simplify the language. So number one, you said it's been 4 years in the making. How did you discover, how did you find this stuff and its potential?
I came across the engineer, met him more by accident than anything. And the two of us got along really well, and he explained to me what he was doing. He was in the fish plant business and had done a lot of work at Dutch Harbor. And the Japanese are very, very particular about the sanitation. And they had wanted to load trawlers up there with two different kinds of fish, one on top of the other, but they wanted the ones on top, wanted everything to be sanitized. And they had these machines in Japan. They've been around for a long time, but they're tabletop. If you've heard of a Kangen machine, you'll see them sold in Calgary. People want alkaline water mostly out of them, but they run on the same principle. And he had been challenged to build something, and he was doing it just as a hobby as much as anything. And I came along and he said, well, you should look at these results. He'd got the University of Washington to spray some apple trees and for powdery mildew. And lo and behold, they put 50 gallons of tree on it, and the trees haven't needed to be sprayed for powdery mildew for 5 years.
Wow.
Okay. So I said, okay, I got to learn more about this. So I had been very involved in the pulse crop industry with peas and lentils, and had exported them into Dubai and elsewhere. And the problem with both those crops in Saskatchewan or Alberta even, you just drive by the crop and say the word ascochyta and the whole damn thing dies because they're so sensitive. So I went to both the University, Idaho State, and Montana, and I was to Montana once, and to Washington State, the two big growers of pulse crops in the U.S. And I asked them, why you guys aren't doing any research on this electrolyzed water? And they said, well, we were told if we wanted to keep our our grants for our universities for masters and PhD programs that we don't ever bring that in the house.
Wow.
So nobody done any work on it. Meanwhile, the Japanese have been using it for 40 years. The Australians have been using it for 12 years. I have an Australian counterpart who works with us to help. He can answer a lot of questions that I can't because he's had it around there for 12 years. So he's in the Darling Downs, and he's about my age, and they're distributed through a different machine. But we're talking maybe I'll be able to sell mine into Australia. I don't know. So we took it upon ourselves to take. We wanted to commercialize this, and nobody knew what to do for sure. The engineer built and designed a machine. He had a couple of small ones. I played around with them for a year, and I put them at Lloydminster, and we worked with a water hauling outfit here, and we did 9,000 acres of test acres, and they were on canola, wheat, barley, everything. And everything came back saying, holy crap, this is excellent. This really works. Even particularly in canola. It was wonderful in canola. We had canola at Stettler, some north of Fort Saskatchewan, up at, well, I'm not going to put them all where they were, but they were all over. And I was like really pleased. Like the guys, everybody was happy about it. And so I thought, well, let's make the big brave step. So I pulled together a group of people, all friends, and a group of us got together. So we got a manufacturing individual from a company called EPSCAN, which is out of Fort St. John and Grand Prairie. And they manufactured remote injection units out on gas lines and such. And I needed somebody because I felt that this thing was going to be technical enough that we needed to be able to operate it from a distance. So hence, I'll just pull one up here in a minute. This one is currently operating in McFarland, which is near Bakersfield in the US. Come on, you get out of here. I'll shut you off. There we go. And it is running right at the moment. And I'll just connect to it. And I don't know whether you can see that or not, but that is what we're doing. Can you
So
read
are
any
you
of this?
using it as a fertilizer, as a
No, just as a
detoxin, or using it as water? What is the, I guess,
fungicide.
what are you replacing that someone's currently using, or is it something new to use?
No, this is replacing fungicides. And the fungicide market in North America right now is somewhere near 3.5 billion annually. And what we're replacing is stuff that was costing 4 to 5 times as much. So we're very economical, and we manufacture it on site. So there's no active ingredient coming here from China or anywhere else around the world. So we get rid of a lot of the packaging and other issues around returning the totes, and all that such stuff is non-existent. And because it's just water, when you're done with it, you pull the plug. You don't really care. You can dump it on the garden if you want. There's no harm. And so dollar wise, we just have to get good quality table salt. And then we found out that some table salts have calcium in them, but we've known now which ones to buy. And we'll use, when this thing is running full out every day, we'll use two 50-pound bags of salt. And that's the only input other than the tap water. And it needs to be good quality tap water. So we run it through a softener first. And where we are in those numbers that are coming to this machine right now are coming from Bakersfield, California. And that machine has been turned on now for 10 days, I guess, I think. And it's not shut off.
Is it the machine that you've built that's the tech?
Yep.
Is it okay, so the science of creating it has been around for a while. We get into that or not. So you've built the thing that,
Yep.
look at me being so
Makes it.
intelligent, a thing that produces a type of water or fungicide to replace traditional Western fungicides. Now, if I'm a farmer, do I rent it from you?
We lease the machine to the farmer, and when we see the size of the farm, we can estimate how much tankage he should have, so we
Okay.
can keep him running. We've got a lot of other plans up our sleeve that we haven't announced, and we won't until we get the patents through on them. But at this junction in time, we're trying to favor very large farms, and that way we can. And when you think about some of these crops, for example, the potatoes in Lethbridge and Manitoba and so on, they will get sprayed almost once a week to stay ahead of the fungicide. And we don't know yet. We're doing some of them now. We know we do the first one and it's just as good as their first one. We don't know about the second one, so we're planning on using NDVI or net vegetative index differences through satellite to determine when that second application should go on. Maybe it's not needed. We know in the apple tree, we put enough in it that it's lasted for 5 years because it went right into it. Now, the other thing that happens with fungus, and Bayer and all of the majors have got a huge problem in the fact that when you knock it off the leaf and the spore rolls on the ground, that genetic material will get together and reproduce. And you got yourselves a hybrid. And that's why most of these fungicides only last maybe 5 to 7 years, and they try mixing them back and forth and playing around with them, but the efficacy drops off drastically. Well, guess what happens when you pull a cell to pieces and put the chlorine in there with it? It destroys everything. There's no genetic material left. So we are when we went to California, because we're operating there, and we're going to end up doing probably, I'm not just sure the acreage yet, but it's going to be a good sized number. And we're finding that they, of course, are looking for organic. Well, we're licensed organic. We carry the full license. Everybody who's organic in the world has made this organic. I never had to do that. It was already around in gardens and stuff, and it had already been done. And plus, the dentists use it when they do oral surgery. So that's how good.
So salt and water sounds pretty organic to me. Two things that exist naturally all by themselves sounds pretty organic to me.
Yeah. So I looked at this and I said, well, I couldn't have begun to go through the testing and all the rest of it to get it up there. So the only testing we're doing is on the stability of it. How long will it remain? Because it wants to go back to water. And right now, our testing is indicating, and we've been using professional companies to do this, laboratories, is that we've got probably at least 3 months storage on it. So we could go out. So we're way ahead of, and it just means that our chambers are efficient enough in moving all of the H&Os into their appropriate channels and not leaving helter-skelter. So it has to be stored in tankage that's proper because it's got an electrical charge in it. So if you put it in a steel tank on the ground, you got no electric charge. It's grounded. But if you put it in a steel tank on rubber tires, it's fine.
Cool. Does it apply to golf courses?
Yes, we could do the fungus on golf courses and it wouldn't bother you a bit. We just have lost track of what all we could do with this stuff. That's, to be very honest, as the marketer and been involved in this now for 4 years, we had to pick a channel. I mean, you can have egg-laying birds. You can dribble this into their water, and it helps keep their crop cleaned out of bad bugs because it doesn't kill all of them. And the egg production goes up. So we've taken it to Mexico to look at that because Mexico has the highest egg consumption of any country in the world.
What, really? Eggs?
Eggs. Huh. Yeah. I didn't know that either. That was a new one for me. So we spent a month down there going around, and we also on peppers, you have to grow them in screen houses to keep the bugs out. And if it's a soft-bodied bug, we can change the pH. We can go and use the other side, the high pH product, and it kills them. It reaches in, pulls, they fall out of the air. We've had this in marijuana greenhouses. You don't need to take the people out either, because the people can be working in there while you're spraying the spiders, spider mites, and all sorts of things.
Can I go back to a conversation we had before we hit record? around. Did you say your grandfather, World War One, Vimy Ridge, had an injury and somehow turn of fate, 100 some years ago, this product existed? Can you connect those dots and retell that story, please?
Well, about the only place in the world that I know that people picked it up and actually carried on with it was Estonia and Serbia in that part of the world, and Asia. Asia, this is what they use in the rice paddies, and it's all in small farming. So it was done by small generators where you generated the product and put it on right away and used it because it was going to not be good for any sort of length of time. So we've taken the challenge, the engineer did. I didn't do this. He's way smarter than I am. And figured out how to build this chamber so that it would make sure that that separation takes place properly. And we've built it in several ways. There's another company. We have some competition in the field. Envirolight would be one of them. And they're out of Estonia, and they've got several different sizes, different style of chambers, and they've been having they've had some problems with fire on their power units because they're very high consumers of electricity. We, on the other hand, run on 12 volts and we use about 40 amps and maybe 6 volts. So it's like a less than 100-watt bulb. So it's no no real cost to run it. And it we just really haven't had any major problems. If we do, if it made the big worst one we had was getting bad salt that had calcium in it, and we just dumped muriatic acid through the whole thing, just dumped it in one end and it came out the other and put it back to work. And
So going back to your grandfather, how did it come across to him, and how did he find it? Not that you got it
well,
down, passed down, but
that
you
was
did
the
share a
only
wonderful
thing they
story.
had. That was the only thing they had for anybody who was wounded. There was no
So go back.
penicillin.
How was he wounded? Where did it
He
happen?
was
What was
wounded
the
on
wound?
Hill 70 in Vimy Ridge in action, and a chunk of his elbow was blown off with a piece of shrapnel, and so he couldn't really move it much. And he was still lucid enough to tell him they weren't going to be able to cut it off because that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to chop it off and fold the skin around. And Grandpa said, "No bloody way. Just give me some of that water and let me go home." So it took him a month and a half to get home. By the time he got out here to Edmonton, it had pretty well healed. And you can put this right now, if you're a lot of clinics right now, if you look up another company that's making this for a different purpose called Bryotech out of Seattle, they're using it for plastic surgery on people. I had a melanoma taken off my head up here with a lot of stitches, and you can't really see much there. And all I did was put a napkin every morning over my head. And of course, everything goes in. You got to remember the ORP was high, and it allows that little bit of chlorine to go in. And some of the ladies that get the needling done for getting rid of their wrinkles and stuff, they're taking jugs of it home with them. I'm not in that speciality, but I know that it's distributed on Amazon at $63 a gallon. and I'd love to sell it for that. But so we're making it for, it's cents per gallon. The machine is the secret. And so we've just really, a year ago when it droughted here so much in Alberta and Saskatchewan, there wasn't much demand for fungicide. So last winter, a year ago, I decided, well, we need to go where it's irrigated. And I was very fortunate to get a potato farm that we'd made connections with through other businesses. And they wanted to try it down in Idaho. And as soon as I got there, he said, "Well, I'm going to need a machine in the spring." So he's taking a machine in the spring, and they're very excited about it. And the same as the group in California, they're like, okay, and if we're going to have to go through another capital raise and the company to bring it together. And I would think that probably most of our business is going to end up in the US just because it's so much, every acre down there is covered with fungicides.
Yeah, no
So,
kidding.
so that doesn't
Absolutely
bother me.
fascinating. For people who are curious, we could talk about this all day. I'm sure there's more than ample stories in there, but we do have to cut it off at some point, so we'll leave it there. For farmers out there, for people who have golf courses, who have growing anything that is lentil, pulse related, as you said, where can they contact you and how do they get more information?
More information is on our website, which is sanicotech, TECH.com. They'll find a lot of information with regards to crops and what diseases and what bugs and what bacteria it kills. And they can give me a call at any time at 403-998-7641. And email, we're best to use Gary J. Pike at gmail.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. Love the story, man. Keep smiling, keep working hard.
Yeah, look forward to doing anything I can to help you along as well. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.